Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Chicago Whovians United, formerly known as Chicago Doctor Who Meetup YouTube channel. Today I'm with some of our Patreon sponsors, and every other month we watch an episode and we discuss it. So this month we're focusing on the fires of Pompeii and the Doctor's morality. But before I go on, I'd like for my fellow Patreon members to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Harmon.
I'm Kristen.
I'm Ruth.
Right? And as you may be aware, more our group we do Whovian events all across the city of Chicago, as well as virtual events for people who can't make it. Um, I'll have some announcements towards the end, so let's get started with this particular screening. And I wanted to look at it through the prism of the Doctor's morality, and I'd like to begin with just some general thoughts about the episode. Anyone can begin.
I do think, it's a great story on a number of levels, and yeah, morality is a complicated subject here because the doctor has to be both moral, but he also has to be responsible to like a higher calling in terms of rules of time.
Yeah, there's definitely the doctor has certain rules in place where it's like I can only intercept seeds so much because this is a fixed point in time. So if we if I do anything to stop it, really like it has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But Donna really kind of pushes that, like, okay, like so we can't do that, but what can we do?
So seems like it wasn't really a fixed point in time, but he made it one. Am I interpreting that correctly?
An interesting interpretation. Or he becomes aware of the fact that it is a fixed point in time and he has to make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
then turns the whole
Yeah.
thing on its head, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he realizes he has to do it, but then Donna recognizing the pain he's in and like just how difficult the situation is makes it puts her hands on his so that she also is responsible. So it's not just his burden to carry, which I think
Yeah.
is really powerful because she's only met him twice before. This is like their first adventure together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really showing what we've already seen before about how passionate um, Donna is, just her strong sense of justice that really just carries throughout like all her stories.
Mm-hmm.
And his statement at the end about that he needs someone with him.
Mhm.
That is,
And,
for me, one thing in this story, and it kind of reflects back to some other elements in Doctor Who. The Time Lords are a group of people that like to be detached. And I sort of felt like, well, when they first arrived here, the Doctor is sort of tapping into, okay, I need to be detached. I need to get into that Time Lord mode where I know all these people are going to die, but I can't feel it. I have to detach myself from it. But like I said, then there's a twist when it becomes he's the one who's going to have to make it happen in order to save the whole world from a worse fate. Uh, and yeah, it goes back to the point that he needs someone with him because he has to be reminded of feelings and emotions. Otherwise, he could just slip back into being detached.
Or he goes into Time Lord victorious. We all see how that goes like later on when he loses Donna. But also it was interesting because there is at the beginning the throwback to the first Doctor in the fires of Rome. He was just kind of like, oh yeah, I did help start that kind of. And I think it's kind of like him being more mature and stuff. It's like, I'm not gonna cause trouble this time. I'm just gonna be an observer and stuff. And then he realizes where he is, and he's just like, oh no, okay, we're gonna leave real quick now. Like I'm not getting involved.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is an episode for me that it resonates with a lot of other Who episodes. I mean, it's from the classic series. It's the episode 6 of Genesis of the Daleks, which is the two wires and have I the right to do it, where he's weighing the fact that he could potentially change history. And 10 minutes later, he says, "Oh no, I can't do it." But then 10 minutes later in the episode, "Oh yeah, I can do it," and basically delays it. But this also resonates with the Runaway Bride, in which is where he's about ready to just kill the Rachnos Queen, and that's where Donna says, sometimes you need get someone to come with you, because sometimes you need someone to tell you to back down, to not go all the way. But also with the future doc, with um, it's one of the Capaldi series, with the Capaldi series, because deep breath, he's like, why did I frown me this face? This face is familiar. Then it's the I think it's the girl who I think it's the girl who died, where he
Yeah.
realizes and they even flash back to this particular episode. It's like, I'm the doctor, I save people. And the irony is, his saving a shielder, she ends up becoming me, and there's a whole other complication to it. But I'm trying to think of where to take this conversation next. Um, in looking at the episode, um, what is it? I mean, obviously, we were talking a bit about morality. But what is it? Is there anything else about the episode that strikes you? Anything at all?
I think it's in this case, there's a lot of foretelling of what's coming in this particular series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, there is a constant back and forth here. I'm kind of going not just with morality, but as the doctor is going through this, trying to find out what's happening, he does play fast and loose. I mean, and he puts people in danger,
Mm-hmm.
like Quintus.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really strikes me about this episode, one is that I mean, it takes place in ancient Rome, and I I grew up being an absolute, Roman history fanboy.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, and I took Latin in high school, so took 4 years of Latin and 3 years of Homeric Greek, and you don't know your classics until you take the original Homeric Greek. In fact, Shakespeare is better in the original Homeric Greek, just so you all know.
Yes,
Um,
Gordon, I took 4 years of Latin in high school as well. No, you have also.
Well, I'm
Interesting.
talking to the general audience watching, not to you specifically. Um, but the other thing too is I like that one of the themes is about the idea of foreseeing the future, because you've got the daughter who, through science fiction means, is able to see the future. You've got, as the doctor points out, there's the augur, the person who comes in and basically foretells the future. That was their job. Um, and it's interesting because this actually focuses, it's one of the few times I can remember where it focused on, I say it's focused on family life, but I'm not sure about that. Well, let me just throw out, just based on this episode alone, would you have determined that Peter Capaldi would later play the Doctor?
No.
No.
Okay.
Do you?
Hmm?
Would you, Gordon?
Well, no, to be honest, no. I mean, because I didn't know much about Capaldi at the time. He was just the guy who was in the episode, and then later on, he would be the guy who brings I think it's the 456 to Earth in uh, Torchwood Children of Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Davies had suggested that because Roman Peter Capaldi was saved, the tragedy was spared until Torchwood Peter Capaldi was killed. But that's neither here nor there. Um, let's see, any other familiar faces that you recognized?
Karen,
Gillian.
yes.
Oh. Also, I don't know his name, but the actor who played the augur I recognize from a lot of things, but I don't know his name.
Yeah, I don't know his name either, but he's also, I know he was the cab driver. Spoiler alert for the first season of Sherlock, everyone. He
Yes,
was the
yes,
cab
yes.
driver
Oh, okay.
who gives,
Right.
he's poisoning people and he gives the two, he's like,
Yeah.
okay, you can take one pill's poison, one pill
Yes.
Stop, stop, stop. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely him.
well, no, the spoiler would be if I told you which pill Sherlock took. And I don't remember that. I just remember the Conan Doyle version where the reason the way that okay, spoiler for I think Study in Scarlet, which
Mhm.
is the original version of A Study in Pink, but the way that Holmes in A Study in Scarlet determines which one's the poison because it's a similar plot, he gives both pills to a dog. So he gives one pill to a dog, dog's fine, gives the other pill, the dog's dead. So that's kind of how he determines that they were doing that. So, yes, folks, in Victorian times, Sherlock Holmes killed a dog,
Oh gosh.
but that has nothing to do with the fires of Pompeii. And so, let's also look at like the other choices. Like the big choice is the doctor choosing to um is the doctor and Donna choosing to execute it at the end. Um, and I know the doctor's big argument is it's fixed point. It has to happen. We can't prevent it, and we can't save everyone.
Well, but it's now also, it's Pompeii or the world.
Right. It doesn't get until that. But do we think a fixed point, using the whole fixed point in time, which starts to pop up in this era of Doctor Who, do we think it's a cop out or do we think it's a good dramatic way of making sure things happen?
I think it's a good way.
Yeah, because it kind of solves the problem like, well, if you have this time machine, why don't you go back and fix this or fix that? Where it's kind of going on. I mean, also the multiple universe theory, where the idea that there are multiple universes, and when one choice is made in this world, and then another universe, it's played out a different way.
Hmm.
And so there is a universe where like they don't make it and that, but I think it's like this is the way the universe stays on track. And the Time Lords are kind of able to proceed, which in certain scenarios, which way keeps the timeline how we know it, and which causes the split.
But I don't think it's a new concept in this show. It goes back to the first Doctor and when he and Barbara and everybody encounter the Aztecs.
Well,
And Barbara wants to change things there. And the first Doctor keeps telling her, can't happen. I know, he keeps telling her. He's trying to tell her, trust me, I know. And of course, they aren't able to change things. Just like in Waters of Mars, when the Doctor actually tries to stop a fixed point from happening or doesn't care anymore, Adelaide Brooke still dies, granted a different way, but in a worse way, I would argue.
well, I would beg to differ on that point, um, because when Hartnell's saying that in that first episode, it's not around a major historical point, something that we know definitely happened. And in fact, one of the edicts very early on in Who is that the Doctor and his companions never, rarely if ever, get directly involved with historical events. Um, Even with the Reign of Terror, which came at the end of Hartnell's first season, they never do anything directly to change what happens in France. It's basically they're witnesses to things that are around it. Um, but most of the historicals in that kind of in very early Hartnell, at least from my perspective, don't necessarily take place on historically critical days. I think the difference here is that um, Pompeii, we know it's a definite date, definite time. So of course you're not going to try to change history. It's the difference where later on when you get, like in the next Doctor, you get the Cyber King, where it's like, okay, that kind of, well, if it's a fixed, a fixed point would say there's never any, how would you explain that when we all know that in Victorian times there were no big cyber robots trying to take over London? But I think it's along the same point as for drama, sometimes you need to establish a necessary rule. Um, and we also see a consequence later on in, I think, is it A Good Man Goes to War or The Wedding of River Song, where all time happens at once. So you've got like cars on
The
balloons
Wedding
and
of River Song.
right, Wedding of
Yeah.
River Song. Thank you. But I also like to talk about, how how do we feel? How is the show? How's Doctor Who? How do we feel it's handled, throughout the course of the show, both classic and modern? The way it uses history and historical backgrounds as dramatic fodder. I mean, what are our thoughts on that? Because I know obviously if it's time travel, you're going to go to the past, but you get a mix of both the pure historical, like the Aztecs. You get that kind of easy mix of, yeah, well, we'll just throw aliens into a historical context. How do we feel about that? What are our thoughts? What are our perspectives on that?
There are almost also como micro moments, I think I'd call it, like was it Van Gogh that they met? So it's historical, but not an event per se. And those are, well, obviously they're similar, but they're also, I think, distinct from the bigger world events, macro events.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think too, and I think and I think Vincent and the Doctor, I don't remember if that was one of the options for us to vote on, but that's one where the Doctor does get involved in history, so to speak, and
Mhm.
even brings Van Gogh to the present, well, the then,
Mhm.
2010, which was then the present, to show him how, to show Van Gogh, like, hey, you'll be recognized, but Van Gogh still kills himself. Yeah,
Right.
excuse my language. He takes an alternative lifestyle path. We'll just say that. He
Oh,
he
no,
passes
no,
away.
he attempted, failed at it, and then succumbed to the wounds.
Thank you.
Succumbed to the
Okay,
injury.
okay. So
So it was a
thank you
failed
for the
attempt that resulted
clarification.
in his death.
But yeah, but I think it's interesting how Doctor Who kind of uses his, like nobody expects ser- I think it's safe to say, it's easy to say, well, Doctor Who gets history wrong, but if you're looking for Doctor Who to be like a historical documentary, you might be watching the wrong show.
Yeah.
And I
That's
do,
true of almost anything.
Yeah.
but I do think it's interesting in thinking about it, and I think this shows how much history, how much too much, how I may have watched too much Doctor Who. When you look at the context of this episode pre-Day of the Doctor, you can see where that decision to not do anything, that I don't, that I need to leave 20,000 people alone and not push that lever. Where when you know what we've known of the Doctor, that he somehow caused his own planet to burn, does that. Now, in a post Day of the Doctor world, and I'd like to open it up for discussion. I think it still has impact because as much as people have complained that Day of the Doctor retcons the Doctor's involvement in the Time War, in my opinion, it doesn't. It only retcons his memory of what he did. But I think leading into it, it also has impact because I think that's an event that hypothetically could have affected when he finally decides to not have John Hurt press the button. I mean, what do we think of that?
I think kind of, so I think what you're kind of saying is this goes back to when the Doctor meets himself and the time streams are out of alignment. And then when he goes back into his, time stream, he doesn't remember. So David Tennant's Doctor, 10th Doctor, is not going to remember that he doesn't push the button.
Mm-hmm.
And they point that out in the Day of the Doctor. And so that means all of that memory, like you say, is still with him, and that shapes who he's going to be. But it is an interesting question because, you know, again, and it was all, I agreed with Stephen Moffat. It is always bothersome when you stop to think about it. There were children on Gallifrey. How could the Doctor kill all these people and all these children just to kill the Time Lords and the Daleks both? There had to be another way out of that. And I do and that says something else about how Stephen Moffat and Russell Davies see this show. Because
Yeah.
they absolutely liked that kind of heavy burden always hanging out there, that the Doctor had to do something really bad for a greater good. Because the Time Lords, we learned, were going to wipe out the whole universe to destroy the Daleks. And so it's kind of like what happens here in Fires of Pompeii. It's Gallifrey or the whole universe. It's Pompeii or the world. It's kind of the same moral choice being made again.
Yeah, and you could
The
see
trolley. It's the trolley problem. Where
Yeah,
it's
sorry, go ahead.
it's the trolley problem where, you know, you can either kill someone you know, or you kill you kill a bunch of strangers you don't know, and it's like, which one do you save? And there's really no right question, like answer to it. It's really, you know, it's supposed to be a hard decision. You're supposed to kind of like wrestle with that morality, and you know, whatever choice you make, um, it's going to be a burden on you.
Well, and that's interesting, Ruth, given the way this episode ends. It's like, oh, ultimately, okay, the Doctor saved someone that he and Donna came to know, you know, and picking who to save and who not to save. You save the someone you've come to know. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's
Your
interesting.
point, Gordon, how this relates to other episodes.
Well, I was about to say, and looking at kind of the Doctor's arc, if you take all, you know, going timey-wimey, after Day of the Doctor, you could see where, you know, maybe that thinking, since he doesn't remember that he didn't do the thing, how he gets to become Time Lord victorious. Because it's like, well, hey, look, I'm the only guy left. It's all on me. So I get to make that decision. You know, I get to decide what's fixed and what isn't. And I think it's that at the time, Waters of Mars was kind of where you could see where that's a moment where, oh yeah, you can see where Time Lords like the Master came from, where it's like, well, of course, you know, I get to decide which laws to follow. And to answer to, you know, what, you know, Moffat had said, you know, that's an issue. There's a better way. You know, Chris Chibnall answered that was, oh yeah, you can destroy Gallifrey. You know, you just have the Master do it. For reasons that, well, you know, don't make sense, and that
Fight.
and I'm going to say that I'm going to say this, and I have receipts. Chris Chibnall stole that idea from Robert Holmes, especially the part of that episode about the Cybermen with Time Lord genetic material. There, I said it. Fight me. Not any of you in this room, but those out there at YouTube, fight me.
Yeah, I'm not likely to fight you.
Now, Richard, we'll get back to the idea of Fires of Pompeii and the Doctor's morality, but in I think it's Richard Molesworth. I just finished last year. I read his biography of Robert Holmes, and there's not a lot of direct, like Robert Holmes didn't give a lot of interviews. So to complement the narrative, Robert, you know, Molesworth inserts proposals from various episodes, both non-Doctor Who and Doctor Who. And one of them is Holmes' pitch for the Six Doctors. And in his pitch for the Five Doctors, which was originally the Six Doctors, timey-wimey, not going to explain it here, but in that pitch for the 20th anniversary special, Holmes posits as part of the plot, the Master goes to Gallifrey, steals Time Lord DNA, and uses it to meld with the Cybermen. So there, Richard Molesworth, Robert Holmes. It's on Amazon. Read it on Kindle. If I'm lying, I'm dying. If you don't believe me, fight me. But back to the fires of Pompeii and the doctor's morality, because I don't like picking fights. Um, when we look at this episode, um, and it's very interesting to look at this. And I know we're going on memories of series four. How do we think? And I know it's setting up some of the major predictions for what happens later. But in thinking about what comes to pass throughout that entire season, um, for me thinking through, I know that there's some little dust ups, like in the next episode, which we in the series, which we Planet of the Ood, the doctor reminds Donna, like, yeah, there's always some kind of slave labor involved. But later on in Turn Left, where we see a world without the doctor's presence, and it goes to hell in a handbasket very quickly. Thinking back on that series, and we're going off memory here. So, how do you think those themes of morality and the doctor's ethics and Donna's ethics play out throughout that season?
I think Planet of the Ood is very interesting because the doctor is both sort of saying to her, well, yeah, slavery, that's how the empire was built, but he's also on the high moral ground of how that's wrong simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also, in a way, somewhat bystanders to how the Ood ultimately become free. It's like they went back in time to a historical event and he had a involvement in it, but they already had their own. They were taking the guy who was running that company and converting him to an Ood anyway. Which is that justice?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of those kinds of questions in this series.
Yeah, because in just going off the top of my head, I know there's the two-part Santarin two-parter where Donna calls him back and not Donna, Martha.
Martha.
Martha calls him back and says, "We need you back." And it's about air pollution and everything, but it's Donna who's like, "Hey, I'm a cool typist. I can get this done." Despite the fact that it's a military operation, and I don't remember if the doctor was still kind of pro-military or is just like, you know what, you unit guys are a little too harsh for me right now.
No, he was really like, no, he was not a fan of the military. And then what happened was Donna, like, why she was catching up with Martha, Donna went wandering off on her own, as they do. And she being a temp was like looking and kind of had an idea what to look for, and then found the binder with everyone's sick leave and was like, yeah, there's no sick time. And the doctor's like, wait, what? And like, she's like, yeah, like, and then goes on to a whole spiel, like, so the reason why that's weird is because at least someone we would be calling off because no one always wants to work. Like, they're working 24/7. And he's like, oh, that is odd.
And what's interesting is in that episode, the doctor's needling Donna that Martha's, hey, Martha, have you become a soldier now? The way she just in unit. And that's the sort of thing, and I had never really thought about this before, Ruth, but Martha should have caught that. Martha should have been the one to say, nobody here ever gets sick. Come on, she was going to be a doctor. That's the sort of thing you would expect her to catch, but no, it's Donna who brings this. What's so great about Donna is this person who, she was just some kind of temp. And the doctor's daughter as well, when she figures out what all the timestamps are and all the buildings. It's this everyday person knowledge. And frankly, in Fires of Pompeii, she's a normal person with normal human morality being exposed to what's happening around her and having a reaction. And again, it's kind of Gordon, you bring up Turn Left as well. I think what's interesting in Turn Left is at the beginning, why does the doctor die? Because there was nobody there to tell him to stop. He decides, he basically stays there to die with the Arachnos, in part probably because he does have some, in his own way, morality, which is, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going to, there wasn't anyone to say, doctor, you can stop now.
Hmm.
Where's is there
Donna,
a guilt factor in him for these choices he's making?
Hmm.
Donna kind of becomes his moral compass after the Time Lord. Like she was kind of like the one who like he really just needed to heal. And then, the specials and like how it ended, it kind of made sense. Like that because she's always there being like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Like, they boost each other's confidence in a way, but she's also like very like just his friend, like there is a friend and moral support.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
and
And
something else, and that goes to the end of the episode, The End of Time, when he's faced with the choice, and Wilfred Mott is saying, "No, no, don't save me. I'm an old man." And the doctor's like, "Yeah, you're not even remotely important, but I could do so much more." And yet he ultimately, as he says, the doctor does the right thing for all sorts of not just noble reasons, but really it is, as throughout that episode when he's talking to the master, he's like, Wilfred Mott was his dad, he'd be proud. So
yeah,
mhm.
he knows how, I think he also knows how much like it would devastate Donna because she's already lost her father.
to lose a grandfather.
To lose her grandfather would have been like heartbreaking to her, and he just could not do that to her.
Mhm.
I felt though that he couldn't do that. It would,
Yeah.
to him at that moment, it would be like any other companion. He's not going to condemn to death. But I like that line, you're not even remotely important. And yet that's the whole reason to save him. Going back to Father's Day, when the doctor wants to save the two people in the church who want to get married, he's like, they met under, they don't sound remotely important at all, yet, yeah, they're the most important in the universe, therefore. So that's where there's kind of this, I almost call it like a circular morality, where the doctor is, one place he's lecturing us about the rules of time, and then he comes around and realizes that these people, even the insignificant people are important.
Yeah, and I think that Dr. Donna relationship is very important when you look at Turn Left and Midnight right
Mhm.
next to each other.
Yeah.
Donna in Turn Left is like the I can't believe this is happening. She sees how important the doctor is, but she also gets like because he's not there, the values that might have influenced his decision making would have taken the planet in a wide spiral. And in Midnight, the whole point is the doctor is trying to tell these people, hey, look, there's something out there. There's something weird going on. And they're like, why should we listen to you, dude? You've got, you've got the t-shirt under the jacket. You're just kind of like a crypto bro,
Well,
or a
he was
tech bro
alone.
2010. What?
He was also alone. So they're like, there
Right.
was no one to speak for him.
Right, but both episodes, that's the point in Midnight, is another example of why he needs someone. He just naturally expects everybody to follow him. He just naturally expects everybody to get it. He knows and sometimes it helps to have that more ordinary person there to translate for him. And it's interesting how at the end of that, who saves him in Midnight, no one knew her name. That's another theme I love in Doctor Who, where the doctor goes back to what happens in Venice when first thing the doctor does, he says, "Look, I can take you to another planet, whatever." And they're like, "No, we're going to sink Venice and do it here." And the real reason the doctor tells her, "Well, the real reason I'm going to stop you, and I don't care what happens to you now, is because that girl who died, you didn't know her name." And it's that little thing, not taking the time just to know somebody's name, just to know who they are. That's
Mhm.
why I'm saying morality in Doctor Who, I think, Gordon, it gets very complicated.
Yeah, and it's especially funny when you get to the end of the episode. First, yes, we are ignoring the doctor's daughter. For those who are watching on YouTube, comment below. We're not going to talk about it because I don't think it's relevant. But like at the ending two-parter, Journey's End and Stolen Earth, where Davros actually says, "Well, hey, you've raised your I forget the exact line, but it's like you've raised your companions to be warriors," and it's like Dude, you created the Daleks. Maybe you shouldn't be like the take. I don't think you can take the moral high ground. Like,
Right.
what do we think?
And the doctor's immediate response to that is, I was only trying to help. So it's like, yeah, the doctor fashioned all these warriors, but he didn't, but he's, again, it's like he's trying to say, I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to do something good with it. But at the end, Davros is calling him destroyer of worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And then Donna pops out and she's like, "Hey, look, our brains got combined. Like, I now have a certain level of your know, like, know what you know." Literally sharing her brain there. And she's like, "Look what we can do. And then we don't have to destroy everything."
But literally one of the versions of himself, um, the other doctor that is created in that journey's end, exterminates all, commits genocide.
Yeah, 10-2.
Dalek, which is not right. Isn't that going a little too far? And you have and I kind of like that juxtaposition. I hadn't thought about that before in that episode, but you really have both, and they literally have the same face. It's not like it's a regeneration. It's literally like, well, they're both versions of this persona. If anything, a little more disturbing because that other doctor grew out of Donna, and so he's part human. So are we saying it's easier for the doctor when he's part human to commit genocide? That's not a nice statement about the human race either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think in part, one of the things with 10-2 is it's talked about in like the audio and in series books that he's got kind of more of Donna's impulsivity. So the doctor normally kind of holds back, but having that Donna have kind of brings that out more forward. And he's 10-2 is willing to take more risks, willing to do things that if he was just a clone of the doctor he want to do, but because he's got that Donna first fury fire of like, okay, I'm gonna go off.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is the Dr. Donna, who can think of things the doctor never dreamed of. The implication there is that Dr. Donna might have found another way to end that situation. That's why I'm saying it's an interesting flip side. And it comes back to this episode, Fires of Pompeii, because of the relationship between the doctor and Donna. There's throughout this episode, under the tones of everything, is that moral debate going on between the two of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
and how she doesn't let it go. That's what I like about Donna, and she was perfect for this episode. Is the doctor makes his statements about, look, it's fixed time, this is the way it has to be, and she still presses.
It seems like the combination of him and her like separate, but when they come together, it like makes something even better than the two of them together. It's just a perfect blend. It's a very like they kind of yin and yang, like off of each other, like that perfect union where they're both bringing certain things to the thing, and it's like kind of a twin energy, I would say.
Well, there was something I wanted to mention when I was thinking about coming to this. You gave us a list of episodes to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up voting on Fires of Pompeii. But what I want to bring up is when I looked at that list, I was like, crap. They all are good choices to raise the question of the doctor's morality. So I hope one of the things you'll do after this session is list all of them for people to consider watching or looking at, because they all brought different questions about the doctor's morality, I thought.
Well, here's what I'll do. I will, that post is on Patreon. I can scroll down. When I do the description for this particular video, I'll be sure to include that as a list. I'm going to ask everyone for some final thoughts, but before I do, and I'll have some announcements after that. But if you want to join in and like join the conversation below, I'll list the episodes. Most of the everything from Eccleston to Jodie Whittaker is available via Max. However, if you don't want to pay Max, and I understand why, because two words, David Zaslav, go to your local library. Most libraries will have these on DVD or Blu-ray. Use your local library because one, it's going to be free, and two, with without getting too lectury or political, libraries are one of the institutions that are under attack because they deal with free information. And I would strongly encourage you, if you want to resist in your own small way, use your public library. Let it be known that they are essential for the community, for your neighborhood, for your city, and for civilization. That
And the
having been
more they're
said,
used, and the more they're used, the more likely they are to receive funds.
Exactly.
what she said. So, so let's finish it. What are some final thoughts on this episode? For the panelists here, what are your final thoughts?
I like how I've had unusually, I don't think a lot of people feel this way, but I've had mixed feelings about Donna. Um, and I think she's growing on me, and I think this episode is a good example of why that she challenges the doctor more than other companions. And that not only is a nice thing to see, but it also helps develop the doctor's character more.
I'm actually going to say something in response to what you just said, Kristen, because yeah, I think that's one of the things Donna, in a way, reminds me at times of Tegan, of the mouth on legs, except there's a different dimension to Donna. It's a little deeper than that. And there is this wonderful chemistry between her and the doctor, which is why when she challenges him, he listens.
Yeah, adding on to that, what's great about the Dr. Donna thing is that they really challenge each other and like really bring out the best in each other and really help each to grow in ways like Donna like grows so much in her ability and like her self-esteem for herself. And even Wolf comments like how much like better she became and like how much stronger. And she kind of relays so much more of her self-worth. And you can kind of even see it like when she talks about her past and like some of the guys she's dated. Like she kind of finally starts putting herself first and being like, no, I'm worth it and stuff. And even like the doctor, after she loses her memory, like calls out Sylvia for kind of being like dumping on Donna all the time. And it's like, no, she's amazing. You have to like tell her this. Like you're part of the problem why she's the way she is. And so and then the doctor grows too. He becomes a better man and stuff. And you see how lost he becomes, especially in the water of Mars. Like after he loses her and like it like damages him so much. And it's really not until like the Capaldi era, like the fact that Capaldi, like he had that face was a direct result of Donna and like him starting to heal himself after like so much trauma and like the specials. I mean, I know people have, but I really like the specials because we kind of needed that closure for those two. But yeah.
I think Russell Davies did what he did with the specials in part because I'm not sure he thought he knew if the show was going to continue, and it gave him an opportunity. Waters of Mars is wonderful because of, okay, I'm really going to push the doctor to the edge.
Okay. And on that note, I'd like to thank everyone for I'd like to thank Harmon, Ruth, and Kristen for participating in this conversation. For those of you watching, we are recording this on the last Sunday of January 2025. Hopefully, this should be up by the end of the week. I'll make sure that we have other viewing recommendations down below. Keep an eye out. We will have a virtual presence at Console Room. I'll be sure to have the sign in, the registration, because they're virtual. There's a free and paid version, and we're part of 3 hybrid panels, but they're all going to be on Discord. So if you want to watch a dude who's never used Discord try to use it, comedy gold. We are also planning our kickoff social for Whovians United on February 9th. We'll be doing a viewing party on February 20th with the androids of Tara. Spoiler, there are androids, and they're on a planet called Tara. I'm just letting you know. But also, you might want to. The best way to if you want to find out and get updates. The best bet is our email list down below. You sign up your email, you're part of the list. It comes out once a month. But we're also having a special Patreon incentive drive. If you join from between when this video is posted until February 28th, you will qualify for our March member-only screening. And it's going to be a challenge. We're calling it the War of the War Games, where our participants you'll be sent the Tubi links to the black and white war games. Then when we come together, we will watch the colorized, re-edited war games, and we'll have a conversation like this. And it will be probably very lively. There are people who will have opinions about it. And so if you support us on Patreon, you can be a free member. But if you join at the $1.50 level, you get to choose viewing selections for this screening. If you join at the $5 level, you can actually request that we show the colorized war games or any episode for our regular meetup. Or you can request a Big Finish listening party, and you can name the event. So if you wanted us to show, say, Warriors from the Deep and call it Silurian Saturday, we'd do it. Only if you're a patron at the $5 level. And if you'd want us to show the war games, I might question your motivations just a little bit. Hey, I take inventory. But with that, I want to thank everyone again. I want to thank you for watching. And please join Chicago Whovians United. We've got some great stuff coming over the next few months. An outing to Blue Box Cafe. We're still waiting word on C2E2. And I would suggest, as you're watching, go to chicagotardis.com and suggest that they work with us because, we've worked with them in the past, but it's been a while. We hear there's a change in leadership. We'd love to work with them, but they may not answer our phone call. So go over and let them know, and it'll be our secret. So again, thanks everyone. See you later. And, thank you for watching and hope to see you again next time. Take care all.
Take care.
Bye.